Those who worked as painters prior to the 1980s are among those in construction trades likely to have suffered from asbestos exposure at some point in their career. This applies not only to house painters, incidentally. Those who had worked as painters in an artistic capacity may also have been exposed as well, depending on the medium in which they typically work. Working with colors. Despite the fact that a coat of paint, skillfully applied, can greatly improve the appearance of virtually anything, industrial paints usually contain a veritable witch's brew of toxic chemical substances. These include petroleum solvents, toluene, xylene, ketones, alcohols, esters, and glycol ethers. Asbestos has been used in the past as a paint filler. It has also been an ingredient in textured and fireproof paints. In addition, asbestos was common in areas and situations where painters typically worked. Backlaying and taping compounds often contained asbestos. Asbestos cement siding was another common building material for several decades. Painting such siding requires a certain amount of skill and training in order to be done without unnecessarily releasing asbestos fibers. Painters who worked on board sea vessels had it even worse. Aboard ships constructed prior to the 1980s, there were few places below decks where asbestos was not applied in abundance. Asbestos insulation was used in virtually every part of ship construction after the SS Morro Castle fire tragedy that occurred in September of 1934. What constitutes ACM paint? According to federal regulations, paint and anything else is considered to have ACM, or asbestos-containing material, only if it totals more than 1% of the total content of the product. This is known as the Grace Rule. It was so named because the legislation was brought and paid for by corporate lobbyists working on behalf of W.R. Grace & Company, which was at one time possibly the largest asbestos company in the U.S. after Johns Manville. An analysis of data by the International Association for Cancer Research showed that the risk of cancer in general for painters was 20% that of the public at large. When it came to lung cancer, the figure was closer to 40%, even when tobacco use was taken into consideration. Typically, asbestos diseases do not manifest symptoms until many years after the initial exposure to the substance. How quickly these symptoms appear and their level of severity depends on the type of asbestos, the amount of concentration, and the length of exposure. There are two types of asbestos fibers. The most common is serpentine, which includes chrysotile or white asbestos. Less common is amphibole, which includes commonly used forms of asbestos such as amosite or brown asbestos, crucidolite, blue asbestos, and tremolite. Despite the color connotations, these fibers were never used as pigments, but did have specific applications. Serpentine chrysotile fibers are softer and curl-shaped. This is the type of asbestos used in most fireproof construction materials. One series of toxicology reports from a scientist working in Switzerland suggests that chrysotile fibers are somehow harmless. According to the reports published by the Chrysotile Institute and the North American Insulation Manufacturers Association, these fibers eventually break down inside the body. Medical researchers at the Mount Sinai Hospital and University of California Schools of Medicine have found a great deal of evidence to the contrary, however. According to actual medical studies, chrysotile asbestos fibers are as deadly as the rigid, spear-shaped amphibole type. They simply act more slowly. Chrysotile was frequently contaminated with tremolite, which had virtually no commercial uses. Amosite and crucidolite have much greater tensile strength and resistance to acids and other corrosive chemicals, and thus were commonly used in chemical plants. Because of the extreme danger of amphibole fibers, however, these two forms of asbestos has largely been banned. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information.
Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.net. Information and help for patients and families.